What's up, everyone? I'm Earl, the Rookie Woodworker, and for today we got a 2x6x8 that we need to figure out something to do with it. I think we can turn this into 60 to 80 bucks with a couple decent little easy project ideas. So let's get to work. So in typical fashion of those back in the corner of the shop kind of board finds, this is an old raggedy old board with some nail holes and stuff in it. So this is going to have to be some like cheap fun projects basically. And the first idea I have is one of those beer game projects, or where you have a shot glass and you have like a key ring that goes swinging onto a hook and you push the shot glass back and forth. One of those things. I don't know if you've ever seen one of them. I don't know. Am I describing that right? That was a bad description. Look at the picture. Look at the picture. That's probably going to be bad. We're going to make one of those. So to start this off, I'm going to clean up and square up the end of this board. For this project, I'm going to need 3 pieces out of this board, which is going to come in at about 26 inches of the board. The 3 pieces I'm going to need here is a 12-inch base, and then I'm going to need a 12-inch post that's going to come up off of the base, and then a 14-inch cross member. Then I mill everything down to make all my edges flat, straight, and presentable. Over here at the table saw, I trimmed out my base piece to be about 5 inches wide, and then I cut my other 2 pieces out of the 14-inch piece of wood to be 2.5 inches wide each. Then over at the miter saw, I just measure out and cut my post piece down to 12 inches long, or tall, however you want to say that. Then for the crossbar, I'm going to lop off the top corners just to make it look a little fancier. And what I did there was I just kind of lined it up at a spot that looks good and put a pencil mark on my saw, and then I just line up both corners with that pencil mark. Good idea to let the blade stop before picking it up with that small piece. It'll kick it right out of there. In the interest of keeping this job cheap and fast, I don't plan on putting any finish on this, and I plan on doing a rough sanding job, just a brief sanding just to make sure there's no splinters or anything anywhere. So I can't put any pencil marks on the wood for this project. So I'm going to use painter's tape to do all my markings for my alignment. For the joinery, I'm just keeping it simple and using deck screws. We got enough material here to be able to fit 2 deck screws in each joint. Now for the piece that they're going the whole way through, I drilled a snug hole through them and then stuck the screws in there just enough for the tips to stick out, and used that to mark where I needed to pre-drill on the other pieces. And then I just sent them home. And now we need to get our hardware that we need for this project. We need some chain for both sides. We need some S-hooks to hook it to the rings at the top. We need our hooks, and then we need our screw-in rings that go into the top. And then we'll also need our keychain rings. I know these rings are small, but even with how small they are, pre-drilling these holes makes screwing them in a lot easier. And then this is where the S-hooks go, and then on those S-hooks is where the chains will get hooked to. Then I put my key rings on, being careful to make sure that the key rings are on the same spot on both chains. That way they're not at different heights. And then cut off the excess chain from there. So then I played around with it a little bit to try to find a good height where it'll hook onto that hook whenever you swing it towards it. And then that's how I determined how high I needed to set my hook into the piece. And then when I went to the other side, I just put it at the same exact height. And then I got myself distracted for a little while. Then I got a Forstner bit that's slightly bigger than the bottom of the glass that I'm using for this, and I drilled out 5 shallow holes that go across the base of this thing. With hindsight being 2020, I think this would have been easier to do over at the drill press before I put everything together. With the drill press, everything's like perfectly straight, and you can set your depth to be the same depth with every time you run that drill bit down into the piece. With the drill, it's just all done by hand and eye. Alright, so there it is. We added about $2 worth of hardware and shot glass to our $2 worth of wood. And as it sits, this project typically sells for somewhere between $20 and $25. You can add some finish to it, sand it down a little bit, do a little bit of wood burning, whatever you want to it, and you can add another $5 to $10 to the value of this piece. But yeah, that's that. It's about a 25-30 minute project. And it's pretty simple and easy to do. Let's move on to the next one. Next project we're going to get out of that piece of wood, I'm thinking along the same lines. I'm thinking a bottle opener. Maybe a bottle opener with a little basket underneath it to catch your bottle caps. Yeah, let's take some measurements and see what we can do. Alright, so this is our bottle opener hardware, and this is the typical size of our soda bottle. Measure that out, figure out how big I need it. Okay, so about, we need to make it about 12 inches, and then if I want to put a catch here for the bottles, I need to make sure the catch actually clears the bottom of the bottle. Yeah, so in total, our length will need to be about 16 inches. Let's get it done. So I went with 15 inches instead because I'm going to make the basket at the bottom of it 3 inches instead of 4 inches. But just like the last project, I'm going to chop it up and mill it down to make the wood look a little more presentable. For the main backboard, I'm going to make it 4 inches wide. Then I'm going to use my bandsaw to, wait, what am I doing? Don't do it the way I'm doing it. Use your push stick. I got it sitting right beside me. I don't know why I didn't use it, but I'm getting awful close with this one. Then I used my drum sander to thin them down. I went with 3/8 of an inch. That's just a thickness that I thought would be a good thickness for this. Then I took those pieces over to the crosscut sled on the table saw, and I cut out the front piece to be 4 inches wide to match the back of the base piece. And then I cut out the side pieces to be 2.5 inches wide each. So then I wood glued all of that together, but that's not all I'm going to do. Afterwards, I'm going to come back and touch it up with a brad nailer later on. Wood glue will probably do just fine for this project, but with the project being what it is, I don't see why I shouldn't throw a little bit extra insurance in it. But for now, I'm going to throw a 10-pound clamp on it and go do something else. Alright, so that one's at the point right now where the glue is drying. I do not have a bottom for it right now. So I'm going to go on to the next project and see if I have some material left over from that to make a bottom for it, and then that one will be done. The next project idea is a chicknic table. It's basically a miniature picnic table. You see them advertised on Etsy a lot as picnic tables that people use to feed their chickens. I don't see why you couldn't use that as a bird feeder or even as a squirrel feeder. So I'm going to make one of those as well. For this one, we're down at the end of the board, and this is where I'm starting to have to design around how much wood I have left. So it's getting a little interesting at this point. I'm going to do some resawing here to make the top as well as the seats portion of this picnic table be pretty thin. So that's actually going to help preserve a good bit of this wood. So then what I did is I ran them through the drum sander to get them down nice and thin. And then I took them over to the jointer where I put a straight edge on the one side of them. And then I took them over to the table saw to slice off about a little more than an inch off of the other side of them. Then I just set that to the side while I work on making some legs for it. Then I'll get a flat side and a straight edge before I run it through the planer, and then get ready to chop this up into 1-inch pieces. I started out cutting my legs at a 40-degree angle and seeing what that would look like, and it looked pretty wonky, so I cut that in half and went with a 20-degree angle for the legs. So I put the top pieces on to join the legs together at the top, and then I slid it up like a 1/16 of an inch, then drew a line there, and then I put my wood glue there just right down to that line. And then that line will be covered by the piece itself because I slid it up before I drew the line. But then I pressed it down into the glue, lined it up real good, nice and straight, and then I went through and hit each leg with 2 brad nails to make sure everything was locked into place. And then I followed the same exact process for the seat supports. And then the 2 pieces that I cut off my thin strips are going to be the seats that bring my 2 sets of legs together. Then after that, I glued and nailed the 2 pieces of my top together and in place. Now I'm down to the point where I needed to go through all of my cutoffs and scraps to try to make some thin pieces to go around the edge. And what this edge does is gives you the ability to pile a bunch of feed into this picnic table. So that is the chicknic table. If I could go back, I think I'd make these legs about 3/4 of an inch to an inch shorter. I think it would be proportionally a little bit better. But the top here you could just fill with bird feed, squirrel feed. You could run a nail up there and put a corn cob on there for the squirrels. I think it'll do its job. But yeah, if there's one thing I could change, I would make the legs a little bit shorter and maybe make these pieces here a little bit longer and then put 2 of these there. I think the proportions would look a little bit better. But yeah, other than that, I like it. Nice thing is this is what I have left of that board right here. So I should be able to get a bottom out of this for that, and then we'll finish that off. So let's get to it. So I'm going to take the biggest chunk out of that pile and I'm going to cut it down to the width of the inside of that basket. Then I'm going to run it through the planer and plane it down to the thickness that I want it to first. And I'm going to do that first because if I decide to lop it off to the length of the basket, it would be too short for my planer. And then I just slapped it in there with some glue and some nails. And this is where I go through and hit it with some other nails for some backup support, if you will. Then for easy hanging purposes, I'm going to use the keyhole slot jig to go ahead and cut a keyhole slot in the back of it. Then the bottle opener is just a simple 2-screw installation process. But that is it for this build. We got 3 easy to do projects out of 1 board. These 3 projects are all unfinished pieces, meaning they're all just bare wood. With these projects, the way they sit right now, you should be able to get $60 to $80 of value out of them. The bottle opener should sell somewhere in the $15 to $20 range. The chicknic table and the ring hook game should also sell in the $20 to $30 range each, which is really great for the amount of time you put into this project. If you're really fast in the shop, you can knock these 3 out in an hour. If you're new, you're a beginner, these 3 projects might take you about 3 hours to do. With filming just about every step, it took me about 2.5 hours to do myself. If you want to, you can take these projects one step further and finish them. You can paint them, you can oil them, you can spray some polyurethane on them, you can laser engrave them, you can wood burn them. The options are endless. And by doing so, you can basically double the value of these projects. Just keep in mind that animals will be eating out of the chicknic table, so try not to poison the animal. But as always, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, hit that like button and then hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell to let you know when I post more videos like this one. Also, in the description below, I'm going to add some affiliate links to the materials used in these projects as well as the tools used in these projects. So if you saw anything I was using during this video that sparked your interest, go check them out at the affiliate links below. I think I'm going to use that right now just to open up my soda. Refreshing.